It's not financial advice, not legal advice, for entertainment, educational purposes only. And anything I say is my opinion. Please don't make any financial decision based on anything I say in these videos. Listen, double check you're still subscribed to the channel. Double check your notification on, and if you hit that like button, double check it's working properly, because you know these bad actors are working overtime to suppress the channel, because they don't want more people becoming aware of all the fraud and corruption in the United States stock market. Listen, guys, the SEC is claiming that they lost thousands of Gary Gensler's texts, okay? They're saying that there were upgrades to his phones, that they erased some apps, and then the text disappeared, and all kind of other absolute nonsense. Yo, they really think we're dumb money. They think we lack basic common sense. If you delete text, they're not even really deleted, because you can recover them. You can recover them, and I'm talking about everyday people can do that. So an agency like the SEC, can they really lose Gary Gensler's text? Of course not. Okay, of course not. They don't want us to see those texts. And do I know exactly what those texts were about? Of course not. I don't know. I wasn't in the text. But if I was a betting man, I would say a lot of those texts had to be between Gary Gensler and the banks discussing manipulating Ripple XRP, because Ripple XRP was going to steal, well, not steal, that's a bad word. Ripple XRP was going to take a lot of money out of their pockets. And these texts were Gary Gensler and the bank probably conspiring against Ripple XRP. Or Gary Gensler telling his subordinates not to go after the bad actors naked shorting AMC, GME, and a whole lot of other stocks, because we have been sending evidence to the SEC for the last 5 years of overwhelming fraud in the AMC GME MMTLP play, and Gary Gensler has done absolutely nothing about it when he was the head of the SEC. And more than likely, these texts are him telling his subordinates not to do anything about the naked shorting. Okay? So, in my opinion, is it possible for the SEC to lose text messages in a cell phone in 2025? Utterly impossible. Okay? Utterly impossible. They're claiming it's unavoidable errors. It's not unavoidable errors. It was done on purpose. They were lost on purpose. And I don't even believe they're lost. I believe that they looked at those texts and they knew those texts were the smoking gun of the conspiracy of the SEC and Gary Gensler against Ripple XRP. Probably the SEC and Gary Gensler against the retail investors, pension funds, and institutions that follow the rules, who were betting on AMC, GME, and MMTLP, telling them to do the opposite, not to do any enforcement, to look the other way, to practice willful blindness to all the fraud and corruption in the market, okay? There's no way anybody's gonna tell me in 2025 that an agency as powerful as the SEC can't recover text messages off government phones, okay? I can do that. I can do that. And they have access to a lot more technology than I would ever have access to. The SEC is just covering their ass, okay? They're just covering their ass, because the text that Gary Gensler had, more than likely, is a smoking gun between Gary Gensler and the banks regarding Ripple XRP, and between Gary Gensler and his subordinates to look the other way with all the fraud and corruption in AMC, GME, MMTLP, and a whole lot of other stocks. Anyway, please leave some comments. Tell me what you think. Do you think it's possible for the SEC to lose Gary Gensler's text? Anyway, have a great day. God bless, and I appreciate y'all on this journey with me.